let's dive into a team that definitely does have some concern, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals, who laid another goose egg, or basically a goose egg, on Sunday. I mean, what was the final score in this one?
27-3. Yeah.
3-27 against the Tennessee Titans. I mean, anybody who's watching football relatively close this season knows that the Titans are not supposed to be a powerhouse. The Bengals are supposed to be a powerhouse, and they went out and got trounced on Sunday, and that's been the theme this year so far for the Bengals. It appears Joe Burrow's still a little bit banged up from that calf. It appears as though Zac Taylor doesn't deserve a head coaching position in the National Football League. I mean, this team is in trouble all over the place, and this is my big takeaway from this week. Said the Bengals are really in trouble, and Zac Taylor might need to start looking for a new job here soon. Some things to note from this game, man. I mean, and in general from the season, they are running out of shotgun 90% of the time. 90% of their play calls on offense are out of the shotgun. Just for reference, the second team on that list, Commanders at 88%, because our offensive line is horrendous. And the Colts come in at 78% at third. 90%, dude. 9 out of 10 plays are in shotgun. That's ridiculous. Obviously, that has something to do with trying to keep Joe Burrow healthy, trying to keep him on his feet, trying to avoid sacks. But, I mean, there's a lot more problems than just that. I mean, Jamar Chase, you saw him complaining in the post-game presser. I'm always effing open. Like, that's not a thing you want to see from your star wide receiver, especially after the game. And, I mean, they do need to get Jamar Chase involved if they're going to win football games. I mean, in their only win this year, last week against the Rams, he had 15 targets, 12 catches. And in the rest of the games this season in which they've lost, he's had either 8 or 9 targets or less. So that's terrible. And then you round it all out with this offense has always been so electric. And when we haven't seen it being absolutely electric, then the defense can somewhat make up for that. But the defense is not there to make up for that this season. I mean, that's not a signature of the Cincinnati Bengals, but they've always been able to help them out. And this season, it ain't happening. They got a 58 overall defensive grade, which is 6th worst in the NFL on PFF. And last season, it was at 75.7, which was the 10th best on PFF. So a complete turnaround in the rankings. So this Cincinnati team has serious troubles, man. What do you think and can turn this ship around, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, we're now to the point where with Joe Burrow, where it becomes a question of, when do we shut him down and just
Yeah.
say, look, we just gave this guy $250 million, $260 million, the most, expensive contract in NFL history. Do we want to risk him having a long-term problem here just to salvage this season, which looks like it kind of maybe already lost. I mean, the AFC we know is a powerhouse. There's a lot of big teams. We talked about it when we were talking about Buffalo. You got Buffalo, you got Kansas City. In your division, you've got Baltimore, Cleveland. I know Cleveland didn't look great on Sunday, but no Deshaun Watson there. You get him back. That defense is still fantastic. You've still got Miami. The Chargers look like they're trying to turn things around a little bit. So you can't fall to like 1-3, 1-4. You can't walk into. I think they have their bye week in week 7 or week 8. They can't walk into that with 2 wins and expect to be in the playoffs and be in the mix. You can't get up to speed that quickly. And we talked about it a few weeks ago when they started slow. They started 0-2, and we were like, okay, 2 years or last year when they started slow, that happens. This is a Cincinnati team that tends to start slow, but the fact that it's still lingering and the fact that Joe Burrow's injury is still lingering, that's a problem. Like, that makes it seem like it's not so much of a short-term problem, and this may be like a real issue for this Bengals team. Like, you just look all across the board. Joe Burrow's average depth of target right now is 4.5 yards. This is a team with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on it. T. Higgins operates deep down the field. You can look at his production over the last 4 weeks with the exception of the Baltimore game. You can see that they're throwing it short. Like, not been good. Jamar Chase, he's pissed because he can work vertically. Like, I understand, like, you want to get him involved in the short game because Joe Burrow can't, drive and throw those balls right now. But, I mean, throwing him the ball 15 times is great, and it obviously got you a win on Monday Night Football, but teams are going to start keying in on that, and if they know he can't throw the ball deep to T. Higgins for those 40-yard balls that T. Higgins has made his money off of, their teams are just going to play down, and that's how Cincinnati's getting beat right now. I mean, even the offensive line has looked pretty subpar. Cordell Volson, though, did turn it around after turning in a 0.0 pass blocking grade in week 3, which I've never seen before. He turned in a 37.6 pass blocking grade, but got a 92 run
Just
blocking grade.
steps to the side when they start rushing.
Yeah, like I don't even know how you do. Like I think it's like a counting thing where like you just got to get a certain amount of positive plays, and his negative plays outweighed his positive plays by a significant amount. But you mentioned the defense as well, and I think that's one of the main takeaways is you think about this Cincinnati team over the last 2 or 3 years, and you think about how, this is a fire-powered offense. You've got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow, and they can put up all these points in a hurry against some of these teams, but you look at the playoffs and you see all these scores are in the 20s. They're in the teens and 20s. And that's because this defense is coached so well by Lou Anarumo, a guy that, I thought was going to be in head coach conversations. He got to the last stage with the Cardinals. They end up going in a different direction. And the defense has not been the same this year as well. 27 points to the Tennessee Titans is not something that they would be doing in a normal season. That's like 2021 Titans numbers. This Titans team should not be putting 27 on this defense. We've talked about isn't the most talented, but is definitely one of the best coached and is still fairly talented. This isn't like a talentless group on defense. They have a Trey Hendrickson, a DJ Reader. They got some youth in the secondary that they're still trying to work out the kinks. Yeah, they got some nice linebackers as well. So this isn't just a Joe Burrow problem. I think the Bengals are in real trouble as a team. This isn't like when we get Joe Burrow back healthy, we're right back in it. We snap right back into contention. Honestly, even if that happens, it may be too late for this Bengals team. That's kind of the concern right now. And we're starting to talk about, Jake Browning, what percentage of Joe Burrow, is 60% of Joe Burrow still better than Jake Browning? I get Jake Browning is one of the lower end backups in the NFL, but at a certain point, we got to start protecting this asset in Joe Burrow.
Exactly. I mean, at least Jake Browning can pass it further than, what was the average depth of target? Less than 5?
4.5 yards.
Yeah. So hopefully he can get it farther down the field than Joe Burrow can. But I feel like we're giving a cop-out, a get-out-of-jail-free card for Zac Taylor. I didn't hear you mention him once. And that's a great question, because it's like, how much of this can we put on Joe Burrow not being healthy? And then how much of this can we put on Zac Taylor just with shitty play calling? Because running 90% of your plays out of shotgun is just bad coaching, period.
Yes, but it keeps Joe Burrow from moving. If he's got to turn around and
keeps
whether it be play action and stuff, I get that. I 100% get that. But the fact that Joe Burrow isn't moving, again, we got to protect the asset at certain points in time. Just having him sit back and shotgun, he's only got to take a 2 or 3 step drop and then release the ball. Whereas if he's sitting under center, he's got to take a 7-step drop, or they're running play action and he's taking still a 7-step drop and he's turning his back to the defense. We saw on Monday Night Football, it was a lot easier to watch because that game was in prime time and everybody's eyes were on it. You saw that it was almost 2 to 3 seconds every time. They were trying to keep him up, and the offensive line did play well despite Cordell Volson having such a bad grade. It didn't feel like he got pressured a lot. It was midway through the third quarter where it felt like the first time that the Rams front really got to him. And that shotgun thing, while it's keeping the offense from progressing and getting to the levels, it's keeping Joe Burrow upright. It's keeping Joe Burrow on the field right now. And at a certain point, that is the priority for Cincinnati right now. I definitely think Zac Taylor deserves some of the blame, because you've got to find creative ways to, like I said, get Jamar Chase the ball. Even though T. Higgins isn't really a yards after catch threat, get him the ball. Just
establish this run game, maybe.
Yeah,
coaching
that is
101.
That as well. I mean, they've been notoriously we're going to run the ball and it's going to be inside zone. That's what they do. That was their thing all throughout last year. And then they started to adjust a little bit. And that's when you saw that turnaround that we talked about, but haven't seen that yet this year. And I think honestly, once a quarter, maybe you've just got to find single coverage for T. Higgins and just throw him the ball there. I don't care if you huck it out of bounds and it's barely even catchable for T. Higgins. You just got to keep the threat there, because it's hard to establish the running game when your average depth of target is 4.5 yards and teams are playing down because he can't throw that ball right now. He cannot beat us over the top, even with these weapons in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins that usually can do that. He can't beat us right now, so we're going to play up. We're going to, we can stop the pass and the run by doing this one simple thing. So some of it falls on coaching. I think not unfortunately, I know some Bengals fans at this time are calling for the head of Zac Taylor, which they've done at multiple points in his tenure here as a head coach. I think that pretty much regardless of what happens this year, even if it is a total disaster, I think the fact that Joe Burrow is injured and, could either A, be playing through injury for the entire season, or B, it's Jake Browning for, from week 6 on or week 8 on, whatever, that's going to keep him his job. Right or wrong, it just kind of is. They're not going to fire
I
him
know.
on a year like
And the only
this.
reason I'm like disappointed is because I know that's true. Like
Yeah.
he's literally going to get another free pass after the season because of what's happening with Joe Burrow right now.